Hi guys, and welcome to another edition of Zupo's SEO Talk and Tea. Today's conversation is about tips to ensure that your SEO rankings are stable when you are redesigning a site. This is really important because a lot of companies go through site refreshes every, I would say, 3 to 5 years. They like to redesign their site. It's always really exciting, but what often people forget about is the SEO when redesigning a site. SEO often is an afterthought once the site is already redesigned, and oftentimes this can cause major issues where some companies have lost their rankings after the redesign. Now, before we dive into that conversation, let me just introduce the tea and we can just jump into the hot topic. Today's is tea, the chrysanthemum flower again. It probably has been on the show more than any other tea, but I enjoy it so much. I normally film on Fridays, and I like to treat myself on Fridays, and I don't think there's any problem with that, so we're going to have some chrysanthemum tea. So let's go ahead and jump into the conversation. When you're redesigning a site, it's usually one of the more exciting times. You have this new brand, you have this new look, you want your site to look slick. I'm all for that. I love redesigning sites. One of my old agencies, we used to have web design in-house, so we would help people redesign sites. And there's just nothing like working with somebody on making sure that site represents and looks slick, cool, and what they want it to look like. Now, when it comes to redesigning a site, there are many SEO implications that are not thought of, and so I'm kind of going to just rattle off some tips about when redesigning a site, what to remember. So if you're a web designer, please keep this in mind. I think your clients will really it will help safeguard and lower the risk of any issues in the future with clients who may come back and say, hey, what happened to my Google rankings? When you're just a web designer, it shouldn't matter. But just knowing these safeguards will help. If you're a customer and you have your own site, you're looking to hire SEO or web designer, these are things to remind the web designer that you're concerned about. Your web designer should have no problem following some of these tips. And then if you're SEO yourself and you're going through a website redesign, you are on the hook to make sure you know these things. So I would encourage you to kind of listen up to these tips, because I have made some of these mistakes and I would really encourage you to avoid them yourself. So number one tip, this is the number one thing that must be done, is number one, make sure, if possible, all the URLs stay the same. What I mean by that is, let's go with an easy website. Let's say you have 5 pages: home, about us, blog, contact us, and products. I don't know. Let's go again. Sorry. Home, about us, contact us, about, and products. Right? These are those 5. Let's go use the about us page. Let's say your about us page is home.com/about. Right? When you redesign the site, a lot of times it's the URLs are afterthoughts, and so people will actually change it to, like, I don't know, home.com/about-us or home.com/about-us, right, with no dash. It doesn't really matter. The point is the URL should not change, because for Google, how they have indexed your site is by the URLs. If you change the URL, they will not be able to. Sometimes there's a confusion and they think that the old version of that page is just non-existent, and they don't know that the new version exists anymore. You want to minimize any reason for Google to have any confusion about your site. So what I highly encourage companies to do is do not rename the URLs of your site from before and after, because one, there probably is no need. I feel like a lot of times people change URLs for no apparent purpose, unless there's a specific business reason. But I've never truly had that happen where there was a business reason why every URL had to change. There may be technical reasons. That's valid. But if there is an ability to not need to change the URLs, that must be the case. So if you're working on redesigning the site, what I would encourage you is map out your entire URL structure for your website, have every URL placed there, and when the web design team is working on it, make sure that we all know what the URLs are, so when we create the new pages, they have the same URLs. Again, this is important because when Google's crawling your website, you don't want them to look in other places, and you don't want there to be any confusion. Google does not like 404 pages, and if they've indexed an old URL that's not going to be on the new site and they don't know what's going on, it can hurt your rankings because they'll just drop you out. You want to minimize any of that, and this becomes even more important the bigger and bigger your website is. So if you have 100 blog posts, you got to make sure those URLs are the same, because I've seen many blog posts fall off the face of the map because one little thing changed on the URL. So number one tip, please ensure that the URLs are all the same, right? That's the number one most important thing you can do. Number two, I would say test test, and when you make the site go live, ensure that it's not on the weekend. I feel like a lot of companies do it on the weekend, which is fine. But I would say web design, it's fine to do on the weekend because generally, if there's any hiccups, it'll be on the weekend and there's not going to be any concern. But I would also say try to balance that out a bit, because if there's an issue and your site doesn't work and the rankings fall, you want SEOs to be on hand and available to help remedy the situation. So you can do it on the weekend, but try to coordinate with the SEO so they can be monitoring it over the weekend, or if possible, try to pick a different time and day where SEO is available to kind of help monitor. We can backtrack quickly. Sometimes just 2 or 3 days can pass and it can already jeopardize SEO rankings. So another tip is when you are launching a new redesign of a site, try to make sure that everyone is in tune at the same time and that there are tools in place to monitor. I think sometimes there can be an excitement and then people can forget that the site needs to be tested, or not just tested, but just kind of be monitored. And so I would implore you, make sure you check in with the SEOs or the clients or even the web team to make sure that people are tracking the rankings and so on and so forth. Third, this one sounds obvious, but I think it should be noted. Please make sure your Google Analytics are transferred over. You'd be surprised how many people forget that. Make sure your analytics are transferred over and your Search Console in tandem. You don't want to lose all your data. Fourth, use 301 redirects if needed. So if your URLs are all the same, it really shouldn't be an issue. But in some cases, you must change the URL. That's fine. But what I would remind you is, again, let's say we're going to go back to the home.com/about page. Let's say you've done link building in the past and you have 100 referring domains pointing to that home.com/about. If you redesign the site and there is a need to change the URL to, let's say, home.com/about-us, the problem is all those links that you have driven from those referring domains will point to a 404 page. 301 redirects will be helpful because it will tell Google this page has been changed and we are permanently redirecting this page to a different URL. So all the link equity that has been assigned to that one page, please pass it to this other page. That is important because when you are doing SEO, you don't want to wipe out everything you've ever done in the past because you've changed URLs. So that's why my tip number one is you don't need to worry about this if all the URLs are the same. But if the URLs can't be all the same, 301 redirects will help you there. You can install 301 redirects on your site. Doesn't matter what CMS you have, you can install 301 redirects and tell Google this URL is now that URL. This URL is now that URL. And I've worked with many sites where if you just do that properly, it won't really hurt the rankings because 301 redirects communicate to Google, yes, this was the old address, but this is the new address. So if you must change URLs, please use 301 redirects. Fifth tip, if possible, try to keep the content all the same. When you are redesigning the site, you want to minimize as many changes as possible. So number one, if you don't need to change the URLs, don't. But second, if you don't need to change the content, don't. Redesigning the site usually just entails making the site look spruced up with different graphics. There sometimes is no need to change the content. So how I would do it is first, this is my ideal. Don't change the URLs first. Second, redesign the site on the same URLs, change the graphics, that's great, and then make the site go live, right? Once the site is live with the new design, wait a week or two. Are the rankings fine? Good. Then unload new content if you wanted to change the content. When you are redesigning a site, it is best to minimize as much risk as possible. And therefore, if you are changing URLs, changing redesign of the site, and changing content, it can really mess with the rankings. So what I would encourage you to do is do them step by step, because then if you do them step by step, you will then be able to catch if something's an issue. For example, let's say you keep all the URLs, you redirect the URLs first. That's fine. Right? Second, then you redesign the site and you make it go live. That's great. You have that there as well. Third, now you wait 2 weeks. The site is live now. You update the content. That's great. Let's say after 2 weeks you've updated the content. Does rankings go down? Well, you have a little bit more reason to believe that it was the content's issue, not the redesign of the site. So I would say when you're unloading the website, try to have some patience in the rollout and do it in stages. And this is very important for websites who have SEO as a valuable asset for their company. A redesign can kill your SEO. And I have worked with a site where a botched redesign, spent like 3 to 4 months of work to try to get the right rankings back. And it was not very fun. I spent a lot of late nights trying to do it, and it wasn't even our issue. But we had to still take care of it. So when redesigning a site, I would ensure that you take those tips, and that will help you ensure that there's no issues when it comes to SEO rankings. This video was a little bit longer. I think it's about 10 minutes long, but I think it deserved a little bit more time. So hopefully you guys found that valuable. If you liked what you saw, I would ask please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys again soon on the next videos. Thanks everybody.